Well, hopefully the lighting for this doesn't look too wonky. There's kind of a glare. I guess I could. Okay. So, this is a review that I did this week simply because I couldn't think of anything else to watch. And I was kind of hoping to do this review at a later time to do a skit with it, but seeing how I was pressed for time and I watched this movie over the past weekend, I'm going to review. Well, you already know what I'm going to review because of the title card. And before I want to get into my thoughts on the John C. Riley vehicle that is Walk Hard, I just wanted to say I saw this movie twice last year. The first time I saw it, it was at a friend's house. I was kind of tired, so I was only half aware of what I was watching, and it didn't really fully register to me what was going on. Um, but one second, please. Okay. But when I was watching it at the same friend's house a few months later, I was fully awake, and what I saw was a movie that was hilarious and criminally underrated. Now, I'm going to try my best not to make this video a 20-minute long monologue about how this movie is amazing, but I do want to address, as any reviewer would, the highlights or the lowlights in this film. And the good news is there's really only one lowlight that I'm wondering if it's even relevant, but I want to get through all the good stuff first because there's honestly a lot. The best way to describe Walk Hard for those of you who haven't seen it or haven't heard of it, if you've seen movies like Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles, or the Naked Gun movies, Walk Hard is pretty much like those films, only it's spoofing the musical biopic subgenre. Specifically, Walk the Line and Ray. I've seen Walk the Line. I actually reviewed that last year, but Ray I have not seen yet. So it is basically kind of like those movies where it's taking something we're all familiar with and then making fun of it. Only I would say this movie is probably a lot more, way more raunchy than the Naked Gun films. Its humor is closer to Blazing Saddles, but not for any racial humor, although there is one joke that would fall in that category. But most of the humor does kind of revolve around drug use and sex. And because one of the main running gags in the movie is Dewey keeps running into one of his bandmates who's getting high backstage, and it always starts with the bandmate saying, "Dewey, you don't want no part of this shit," and then Dewey eventually convinces himself and his bandmate to let him use the drugs, and that's one of the main jokes about the movie is that the character ends up getting addicted to almost every drug you can think of. So yeah, that's one of the major jokes in the movie, or having him sleep with pretty much everyone he comes across. Yeah, it kind of spoofing stuff like that. Um, the one thing I can really praise about the movie before I get into the main stuff is the soundtrack for this is actually really good. I mean, a lot of the music is still trying to be funny and goofy, but it does a great job at capturing the 50s and the 60s that are the time periods that the story mainly takes place in. I mean, it takes place in the 40s to start, then the 50s when the title character starts making it big, the 60s where his career is kind of starting to rise but also kind of starting to falter a bit. Then it goes through the 70s where this guy is just a has-been but isn't quite fully aware of it himself. And then the movie does end in present day 2007, since the movie came out 12 years ago, with the character finally coming full circle with his whole life. Um, anyway, uh, so it was kind of impressive to hear that they wrote 30 songs, and I think they used like about a third of those songs in the movie. Kind of makes you wonder what other gems were left on the floor. And I'm not sure I want to give away the songs, but here's a handful of songs that are my favorite: "Walk Hard," "Guilty as Charged," "Beautiful Ride," And those are just the three that are probably the most popular that people remember from this movie. And also, another thing I would like to say is that John C. Riley's performance, he does a really good job at playing this rock star who's kind of he's likable enough that you want to root for him, even though he does do some pretty terrible, stupid things to those he cares about. And honestly, the point where his bandmates get mad at him. Hang on, I hear a phone ringing. Huh. Forget it. Anyway, so there's one scene where Dewey's bandmate, I think it's his bass player, that just screams "F you, Dewey," and then his entire band start complaining about how much of an ass he's been to them the whole years. And this is one of my favorite lines in the movie, where one of the bandmates is like, "You slept with my wife," and then the bass player is like, "You had sex with me too, and I've had confused feelings about that for 10 years." So I thought that line was pretty funny, and that's the only funny part I'm gonna spoil in the movie. That you can see the rest of the movie yourself, and hopefully when you see the movie, you'll forget about that one funny bit I referenced, because that is a pretty funny joke. I feel like all the actors and all the actresses in this movie, they did their jobs very well, and they did what was asked, and they did their roles very convincingly. Jenna Fisher was really good as Darlene Madison, Dewey's eventual love interest and eventual wife, because she did that good job of being prim and proper, being a sex symbol, and then also being someone that is, a strong woman. Because she's one. The character is someone who's beautiful but strong. She's not just some token hot chick that the character chases after. She actually has a personality, you know? And I will say this, I think I would have liked it more if we saw more of her side of it to see why she was attracted to Dewey, because I mean, it is explained well enough in the movie, but I think it would have been more interesting to dive a little, just give like a few extra minutes of why she's so into this guy. But it is just kind of love at first sight. Well, even though they're just friends, and I don't want to give anything else away. You'll see when you watch the movie. I think my one major complaint about the movie, and I don't, oh man, I don't know how I'm going to explain this without giving away the ending. But there's one scene at the end of the movie where they mention that Dewey was born in 1936. And the reason why I bring this up is that it says he's a 15 years old in 1953. I'm like, okay, if he was 14 years old, if he was 14 or 15 years old in 1953, he would have been born in 38 or 39. If he was born in 1936, he'd be a junior in high school in 1953. So that's kind of my one problem, and I'm honestly not going to get angry about it, simply because this is a fictional rock star that they're making a movie about. I'm not going to get angry over a minor mistake like that. If Dewey Cox were a real person and they got the date wrong and they never bothered to fix it before releasing the movie, I think I'd have a little more of a reason to complain about it, but this is still kind of a petty complaint. I think one of my other, I don't know. I don't really think this is one of those movies that I really enjoy, that I can't really think of anything to complain about that doesn't sound super nitpicky, but I also don't want to go too overboard with praising the movie because I don't want to sound like some crazy fanboy. Well, more like fan man, because I am 24 years old and my nose is running like, oh man, I'm really sorry if I'm rubbing myself like this. It's allergy season. It's hell for everybody. Um, Anyway, I think the last thing I'll say about this movie is that I kind of wish it was more appreciated. I kind of wish it was more well known. But then again, at the same time, I kind of appreciate the fact that it's not that well known because it makes it even sweeter to be a fan of it because it feels like you're part of something special. Like, I'm one of those few people that sees the beauty in this movie that not many people have heard of. I kind of I kind of feel the same way about Harrison Ford's 1985 thriller Witness. Witness is a great movie. It was nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards, yet no one really talks about it as much as, say, like Indiana Jones or Star Wars when it comes to Harrison Ford movies. So, Walk Hard and John C. Riley, he's a fantastic singer in this. Because I don't think, unless you've seen him in Chicago, I don't think you would necessarily look at him and say musician. But when I first saw the movie, I was convinced that his singing was dubbed by someone else. But no, he had a really good singing voice that he managed to make a little higher for the movie. He was able to play guitar, so it is kind of cool. To me, it's amazing when you got an actor that can sing and dance because that just kind of opens the door up for a bunch of other roles. So I do think this is a great John C. Riley movie, and I think it should be at least put in the same conversation as Naked Gun. But until that day comes, I'll just keep enjoying my film, and I hope that most of you guys will see this review. And hopefully, I've convinced some of you guys to watch the movie because even if you're not into comedy as much, I would still highly recommend you give this movie a chance. And even if you don't understand completely what it's spoofing, the jokes are so broad and so wide and so easy to grasp that they're funny anyway, regardless of what you are aware of that they're spoofing. So I don't know what I'll be reviewing next week. I'm probably going to review another Prince movie since his death anniversary wasn't that long ago. So see y'all next week, and I'll be doing my Tom Petty cover on Monday. Take care. Yeah, I should put my hand right. Well, that was